The Man in the White Suit is a delightful movie. It's been one of my favorite movies since I was like 12 or something, and the other day I realized, technically, it's science fiction. I know it might be stretching the definition a little bit, but, I mean, especially as regards what we normally see as science fiction in movies, but I mean, really, it's the story of a man who, through science, invents something, and then the way that other people react to it. And it's about sort of the responsibility of invention, and it's also funny. That has nothing to do with it being science fiction. It is, it's an adorable movie. I own it because I love it. And it's about how Alec Guinness invents cloth that is always clean and won't tear or anything. I mean, actually, in order to make a suit out of it, they have to cut the stuff with a blowtorch. It's a really funny and sweet little movie. Like, it's from the 50s. I think 51? Yeah, it's from 1951. And I would heartily recommend it to everyone. Yeah, and I mean, the main conflict is that Sidney Stratton invents this cloth, and then immediately, like, once people find out about it, all of the big giants of the textile industry are freaking out, because if anyone else gets their hands on this formula, they could be seeing a monopoly, but also because they're aware that it would basically put the textile industry out of business. Like, I'm not sure they're 100% correct here, because they're all like, you would never need to buy more, you know, more than a certain number of clothes, like they'd never get dirty or wear out. But it's like, but you could get fat or something, or, you know, kids always need new clothes because they get bigger. But yes, people would probably buy a lot less clothing. But, anyway, but it's interesting because all of these captains of industry, you know, are all freaking out about it. Meanwhile, all of the people who work in the textile mill are freaking out about it because they, obviously don't want all the mills to be closed down because of this, and them all to lose their jobs. And then, of course, the movie culminates in everybody just kind of banding together, realizing, wait, we're on the same side here, and then chasing Sidney around like whatever English city they're in until they finally catch him. And he's got himself this white suit made out of this fabric, because of course they haven't figured out how to dye it. And it's so white it practically glows. Like, they do something when they're filming him, especially when he's in the dark, that just makes the suit gleam. And it actually, well, I mean, the first time you see him wearing it, he comes into to talk to, I think her name is Daphne, to show her the suit, and she just starts laughing and is like, it looks like it's wearing you, and it kind of does. Oh my god, I love this movie. Like, I was a little worried, because it's been a long time since I've seen it. I was like, what if I don't adore this movie with every fiber of my being like I used to? But it's okay, because I still do. It's really funny, and I don't understand the science at all, I have to admit. The organic chemistry that I took basically got up to sugars and then ended. So I know what all the words they're saying mean, but I'm not sure if it would even be remotely possible to do. Well, okay, one thing they say is that, like, he sort of explains it to Daphne, and then she reads a whole bunch of stuff to figure out how it would work. And her explanation to her father, who runs one of the mills, right, is that what if you could make, is that fibers are made of, they're made of long chain molecules. What if you could make a chain molecule that was infinite? Then in order to cut the fiber, you would have to break the molecule, and that's obviously extremely difficult. So their explanation actually for why using a blowtorch works is that there's a chemical reaction, a chemical change that occurs above a certain temperature, So it's not even literally cutting it. It's more like it's melting it, I guess. But, oh my god. So, infinite? No. You can't make something that is of infinite length. It's not possible. You can never actually reach infinity. It's just a concept. But, that aside, that very far aside, because who cares? This movie is funny and it's sweet, and I love it. And Sidney Stratton is just such... He's a bit of an idiot. I kind of love the fact that he doesn't learn a single goddamn thing in this movie. Like, you think that maybe he's learned his lesson. Like, there's that bit when they're all chasing him, and he runs into the lady, his landlady, and she's all like, what? She has this line where she says, why can't you scientists leave well enough alone? Where's my bit of washing if there's no washing left to do? Because she obviously makes money, like, washing clothes. And this affects Sidney to the point where he stands there and lets everyone else catch him. But then at the end of the movie, they kick him out of the mill, and they're like, get out of here. And the guy who's in charge of this mill, Burnley, is ostensibly narrating the movie, but he only says stuff at the beginning and end. And so at the very end, he's like, well, that's all over with, and we've heard the last of Sidney Stratton. But then, like, he's like, I hope. And then Sidney, like, realizes something as he's walking away, and he's like, oh, of course, that's it. And it walks off, and you hear, like, the bloobling sounds of his weird scientific instrument. And the movie ends, and it's so funny. I love the fact that he didn't learn a single fucking thing in this entire movie. It's just like, oh, he's gonna go off and try and make that fabric again and do it right this time. Because this time it had limited shelf life. I guess it started breaking down. Which, basically just in time for them to catch him and then be able to tear the suit off. But yeah, it's an interesting little movie because it's all about, like, industry, I guess, versus the scientific idealism of, you know, because Sidney just thinks of it like, wow, I've done a cool thing, and wouldn't it be wonderful? We can make this fabric that won't get dirty, and then people won't have to wash clothes anymore. And you won't have to buy as many new clothes because it won't be torn up, so people won't have to do hard jobs in factories anymore. It's very idealistic, but unfortunately, of course, everyone else is much more practical and is like, well, we want to keep our jobs. And there's also a bit where the workers are talking, and one of the guys says something about, like, oh, they're never going to actually announce this invention any more than, you know, than they would ever sell those cars that run on water, or a razor blade that never gets dull. You know, pointing out, I guess, the self-perpetuating nature of capitalism. Like, oh, I love the worker characters in this, especially Bertha, I think her name is, who is the main one that we know, because she just really likes Sidney a lot, and keeps insisting that he wouldn't invent something like this, that he wouldn't kind of betray them in this manner, but obviously he would, and, you know, but then she's also so far on his side that she doesn't think, oh, he wouldn't team up with all these bigwigs, which is true. They actually have him locked in the guy's attic. But then what's funny is when he escapes with the help of Daphne and goes back to his place to get some money so that he can, like, take a train off somewhere, runs into Bertha and tells her, no, I'm going to tell the newspapers because the world has to know about my invention. And then she locks him in his room. And it's just interesting because he goes from being locked in this attic to being locked in this basement room. I don't know. And then that little girl helps him escape. I don't know who she was, but I like her. And I love Daphne, too. Like, Daphne and Bertha and the landlady. This has a lot of good female characters, really, for a movie that's, you know, not really about that. But, Daphne is lovely because, oh my goodness, there's this whole sequence where they're trying to remonstrate with Sidney, and they've offered him, like, a huge amount of money, but he has no interest in taking it because he's this idealist. He doesn't care about money. He just wants to publish his research and to change the world or whatever, and, you know. But they can't really sway him that way, and then one of the guys is like, well, you know, maybe he could be swayed by a friend or by a woman. So anyway, then they find out that Daphne is his friend, And there's this, they're like gonna get her to basically seduce him and to convince him of this. And I love that scene because she's just like, well, how much are you going to pay me? And also there's this whole underlying thing as well with her and Michael, who runs a different mill, and who she insists at the beginning of the movie is not after her for her money, or her father's money, but he like totally is, and this is kind of when she realizes, oh, he doesn't actually care enough about me to put me above all the stuff that's going on. And then, so that's an interesting thing that's going on kind of in the back, on the side. But yeah, and then she goes to Sydney and she does attempt to like convince him that if he took all this money, the two of them could run off to Paris together, and she could be with him and stuff. And then he's just like, no. And then she's like, well, good. Because if you'd said yes, I would have strangled you. Now I'm going to help you escape. And it's just lovely. I love this movie. Did you know? It's really quite funny. There's all this stuff where he's trying to create the fabric in the first place, and stuff keeps blowing up, and God. It's a really good movie. I am not going to talk about it for another 500 years, but I just want to say that y'all should watch it, and it's just sort of bordering on science fiction, so I felt like I was justified. And I never see anybody talk about this movie, so I know it's kind of old, but I mean, it's Alec Guinness, first of all. Like, y'all need to watch Alec Guinness in all sorts of things, because he's always really good. With the added bonus of when he was young, he was really pretty. So he's just like really cute in this. Like, I love him. And Elizabeth Stratton's just an idiot, but doesn't learn anything. No lessons were learned. I don't know. I didn't know why I like that so much. I just do. It's just funny. So, yes. Quite a different movie from what I normally talk about, but one of my favorites. And I obviously hardly recommend it.